Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I've got a full review to do for you. This is an interesting knife that I'm reviewing right now. There are some things that I love about it, some things that I'm not totally sold on about it, and it's interesting for a number of reasons. But this is the Tor Knives Merchant, and I got it from River's Edge Cutlery. As always, when I get something from the guys over at Rec, I will link to them down below. So you'll find their Instagram, their site, their YouTube channel, all linked down there. And yeah, I was excited to finally pick one of these up. I'd been kind of meaning to for a while. When these came out, there was quite a bit of buzz around them. I saw a decent bit of negativity. I saw some really like super positive remarks, and it just seemed a little confusing to me. I wasn't totally sure what to make of it. Tor Knives is based down here in San Diego, so I've actually been to not only the showroom, but I've kind of done a quick shop tour over there. I've talked to those guys. Connor Tor is a really nice dude based on the conversation I had with him, and I like their story. I like that they're a new U.S. OEM. I don't know if you could call them an OEM. I mean, they're their own OEM, but they're not doing outside OEM work based on what I understand. Anyway, they're a new U.S. player who is building knives in-house, and they're doing everything down to the hardware in-house. They're doing it all. And they're coming in at a pretty affordable price point. I believe I paid right at $250 for this knife. This model is the Merchant again. And to have a US-made S35VN titanium frame lock come in at $250 is below market compared to most other competitors, right? This is punching at the price range that a lot of overseas OEMs are playing right now. So I like that. I like that that's a thing that's happening here in the US. There's a couple new players, and I've been trying to try each of them out. So like Tactile Knife Co. has the Rockwall. I have the Flipper. I'm really excited for the thumb stud version to come out. I think that knife will do better with thumb studs than it does with the Flipper, and I like it with the Flipper. I have the Monterey Bay Knives, Sea Otter. Still need to do my full review on that knife, but I love it. It's great US made option. I bought that at a knife show for just under $400. They haven't really gotten production like fully up and running over there yet, so they don't have a million of them to sell, but they've been selling them. So that knife is officially out as well. And there's probably some others that I'm not even thinking of here in the moment. But US made, small-ish titanium folders with decent steel, it's becoming a more competitive space. And I love to see that, because if you know me well, you know that I'm not a huge fan of Chris Reeve knives. I'm not a giant fan of Hinderer knives. I'm not a huge fan of Strider knives. And those are kind of like the big three, right, that have seemingly just kind of held most of the market share for a long time. And I don't even necessarily have a problem with that. I don't need market share to go away from those, but I do like seeing new US players. I would prefer for more knives to be built in the US. I, as a knife designer who has OEM projects going, would like US OEM options for me to pick over here, and I'd pay more for them. So I like that it's a thing that's starting to happen, and we've got these new brands kind of budding and coming up. So with all that said, the Merchant is the knife in their current lineup that stuck out to me the most, as being the one that I'd probably like in hand and in pocket. Since the time of getting this, they had just come out with, I don't know if they've fully released a whole bunch of them or just maybe done one batch, but there's another model, I'm forgetting the name of it, I'm sure someone can comment it down below, but it's a collaboration with this company called Sangen Instruments. I hope I'm saying that right. I think they're a watch company, and I believe it's one of like Connor's military buddies owns this watch company, and they've done a collaboration where they've done a design from Sangen Instruments, and that one has a deep carry clip, has a profile that looks a little bit more appealing to me. So I'm thinking I may need to get one of those, because frankly the story of this one is, for me, going to be that it misses by a little bit. I don't love this knife. I'm going to sell it to a buddy who I already know wants it, so please don't at me if you're interested in it. I've already got it kind of lined up unless he backs out. But I'm not going to keep this knife because it just, for me, isn't the right design. But there are some strengths here that are worth talking about. So let's just kind of go through my typical Ergos carry cutting action. We'll see what that shakes loose, and then I may have some more comments at the end. But let's start with Ergos. So first things first, when I unboxed this knife, I was really pleased with how it felt in hand. I wasn't expecting it to be as comfortable as, frankly, it is. It's a really comfortable knife for me. I get a great saber grip on it. This kind of forward groove up here is really nice for my pointer finger, a little bit of a ramp for my thumb. The jimping is more aggressive than I would prefer, but it's not horrible, and it is comfortable. It's not ripping up my thumb. It's just a little bit more harsh than I'd prefer. So anyway, the saber grip is just wonderful. The way that this curve rests into my palm back here, super nice. It's a very neutral handle in a lot of ways, in the sense that this is just a super neutral line. This is very flat. So it doesn't feel like it's restricting me into any uncomfortable, like, tight squeezes. I've got a little bit of wiggle room, but everything does still feel pretty locked in. And with there being no texture on these titanium scales, that's a really good thing. We do have the little bit of jimping, but that's it for texture, right? And so the fact that it feels as locked in as it does, I think is a big strength. I do really like the way this knife feels in hand. It is a little bit thick, like just if you look at the thickness of these titanium scales, they're real thick for titanium scales. They could definitely be, I don't know, a third thinner on each one, and this knife would absolutely still function and be strong, in my opinion. So that's one thing that I'm scratching my head at just a tiny bit. Plus the lock side scale, unless my eyes are absolutely crazy, the lock side scale is a hair thicker than the show side scale on this one. I guess that could be some kind of optical illusion happening to me, but I really don't think it is. I'm pretty sure it's a hair thicker on the lock side. So it just feels a little bit kind of boxy, but that said, it's not like sharp boxy, because all of the lines on these scales are really well chamfered, so everything is rounded off well. Nothing is sharp or poking me or prodding me in any way. So I like that. The clip doesn't create a hot spot at all because it's so far forward that, frankly, it goes into like this little pocket on my hand. So I guess that's a positive for the clip. I'm going to rail on it when we get to carry, but in hand, the clip feels great. So I'll give them that. Okay, so yeah, ergos are good in a saber grip, good in a hammer grip. In a reverse grip, super comfortable. I really, really like this knife in a reverse grip. Reverse grip draw cut is just fine. I like that quite a bit, actually. And then forward grip draw cut, also comfortable. So any grip that I put this knife in, it's comfortable in hand, and I like that. All right, let's just go to carry. This pocket clip is my least favorite pocket clip that I've experienced in quite a while. In the sense that, so there have been a couple of clips that I've come across where they're like too pointy or something, and then I don't like them for that reason, or they're too snaggy, or they don't have good enough clearance that they're kind of a bummer to get in and out of pocket. And this isn't any of those things. So it's a different type of problem, I guess, for me. This is more so that it's the shallowest carrying knife I have had in maybe my life as a folder goes. Like, this much knife sticking out of your pocket is kind of insane. And I get that some people like to have knife sticking out of their pocket because that's what they grab to pull a knife out of pocket. I don't. I prefer deep carry clips. I'm perfectly proficient at getting a knife in and out of pocket when it's got a good deep carry clip on it. I don't need there to be an inch plus of knife sticking. That's got to be, what, an inch and a half maybe? That's a lot of knife sticking out of your pocket, and I just don't prefer that. It's like, it's also because of the shape of this handle, it's a fat portion of the knife that's sticking out. If the handle kind of tapered this way, was cut off a little bit, it might seem less crazy, but there's just so much meat up here that it leaves sticking out of pocket. And I don't love that. That's not my thing. Again, to some people that may be a strength. And granted, this is very much an opinion review here. All of my reviews are inherently a lot of my opinion, but this, in my opinion, is a bad way to do a pocket clip. The pocket clip retention is fine, goes in and out of pocket fine. In hand it feels fine. Like, all those things are okay, but the placement of it and the style of it, having such a big tab to mount, and I kind of see why they did it, because they did it into these barrel spacers, so that is what that is. But this is just so, I don't know. I don't like that. I don't like it at all. And to say anything otherwise would be a lie. So I don't like the pocket clip. It bothers me that I've got that much knife sticking out of my pocket. It just feels weird and funky, and I don't know. Maybe that's too critical, and you're some tactical guy who's like going to try to come at me in the comments about all the advantages of having half of your knife out of your pocket. It's also like, Tor Knives up to this point has been a fixed blade company. So to them, like, deep carry maybe isn't even really a thing that they're used to thinking about so much. Like, they're fixed blade guys, and a fixed blade goes in a sheath, it doesn't even fold. Like, carrying that is a whole different ball game. So compared to a fixed blade, this is going to seem like cake to carry in a lot of ways. So I guess there's that. But in the world of folders, especially kind of the enthusiast market that exists right now and that I feel like I'm a part of, this is not good clip design. So maybe that seems harsh. It's definitely opinion, but it is what it is. Let's talk action. So this is a thumb stud only knife. You've got big proper thumb studs on both sides. With my thumb, it's a nice, pretty poppy action. It's certainly not like, I don't know, you can feel that this knife is on washers, and you can feel resistance the whole way along. It has a very stiff lock bar, and so none of it is like super smooth. It's not gritty, I'll give them that, but it's not a free dropper, and it's not like fidgety. Like, to deploy, yes, I can use my thumb, I can flick it, it will deploy all the way, it will lock up. So it's proficient in that way. But that said, it's on the low end of knife action. If you care about action, I don't think you will love this one. If you're someone who just wants to slow roll a knife out, sure, it'll slow roll out. Closing the knife, again, lackluster. This huge, thick lock bar is kind of a bear to move out of the way. So you disengage that. And then there's also a lot of travel until you get to where the detent hops up. So it has to go all the way over here, and then you're at a spot where there's no detent ramp or anything, so you've got a pretty stiff wall to push past there. And then again, stiff the whole way down. If I try to drop this, that's with the lock bar all the way out. There we go, just past the detent now. Not a drop shutter. Not trying to be fair, but I care about knife action. I want a knife action to be fun. That moves the needle for me. If you're someone who doesn't care about it, if you're a slow roller and a slow roll closer, great. You may like this much more. If you care about knife action, you're probably not going to love the action or lack thereof on this knife. Lastly, let's talk about cutting performance. So this blade is in S35VN. The edge that came on it is pretty good. Not incredible, but pretty good. It's a good cutting geometry and cutting profile. We've got a blade stock that's not overly thick. It's not stupid thin either. Definitely feels like a tool of a knife in terms of this blade stock thickness and the type of grind. We've got a nice precise tip. We've got a tall flat grind. And it's a very good kind of user shape, especially the way the knife indexes. It feels very, very usable. It's one of those knives that kind of feels like, I don't know, it feels like you've got more handle than blade in a way that might not aesthetically to some people be the most appealing. Handle to blade ratio, I think, is one of the ways that some folders look really cool, is when it's like, how'd they get that much blade in there? This isn't one of those cases, but it does make it feel like you've got an incredible amount of control over this blade. So I like that. The thinness behind the edge, it's not stupid thin, but it's definitely not a thick behind the edge knife. It's not a wedge. It slices fairly well. I've used it to cut cardboard, packaging, tape, all that kind of stuff. A little bit of paracord. I did put it through some thick rope just to feel how it did, and I did slice an apple with it. For each of those tasks, it did fine. It's not like the shining star of knives I've tested, but it's certainly no slouch. It did just fine. S35VN is an appropriate steel choice, I think, at the price point that this comes in at, being US built. I think that's fair. Sometimes I harp on S35VN on knives that cost $400 or $450, but at the $250 I paid US built, I'm okay with it. I know that they are very cognizant of heat treat over there, so by all accounts that I've heard and by talking to them directly, it would appear that they did a good job on heat treating this one. So, yeah, I mean, cutting performance is fine. I like the blade. I like the way it works. I think the overall sense that I get of this knife is that it feels like it was designed by people who do fixed blades. Because the way it indexes in hand, the way that the proportions feel, the way that it feels as a tool, when the knife is out and open and I'm cutting with it, it feels a lot like a fixed blade in many ways. It just kind of works like that. But for those same reasons, it makes it feel a little bit lacking as a folder, if that makes sense. Like, there are some properties to fixed blades and to folders that are unique to each and give them strengths in that way. This not having a super satisfying action, not carrying super deep, feeling, I don't know if sterile is the right word. It's unexciting in the ways that some folders can be. That's the way I often feel about fixed blades, because fixed blades don't have moving parts. They can't do those things, and so they're a little more no nonsense. And this feels very no nonsense for a folder, but for me that's just not it doesn't make me that happy, if that makes sense. So it's a story that I really like. It's a build quality that frankly feels quite good. The lockup is bank vault solid. I don't have any side to side or front to back blade play. It's really well locked up. It's stayed centered. It's built in a way that the tolerances feel nice and tight, and everything feels like it's held together well. And so I like that. But I just don't love, at the end of the day, I think kind of the design of the knife. And yeah, I don't know. When I was there for their shop tour and I was talking to them about their folders, it was pretty apparent that they're aware that the enthusiast market hasn't really embraced these first couple of offerings, these first couple designs that have come out. And so I think what we're going to see happen, because Tor cares right now, is that they're going to pivot in a way where they're going to just have more intriguing designs for enthusiasts come out. And the knives won't necessarily feel like it's one of their fixed blades turned into a folder, which is kind of how this knife feels. It'll feel like a folder that was designed to be a folder, is what I see happening and what I hope happens. Because we have great ingredients from great people. Better ingredients, better pizza, Papa John's is how it goes. But it's a company here in the U.S. Started by a veteran, a lot of veterans working there. I like that story. I think that's a good thing when it can happen. I encourage it. They're using good materials. They're doing everything in-house, down to the hardware, the finishing. I think they're even doing some of their packaging in-house. Like, that's really cool that they're doing all of that. And I want to support it. But like I said at the beginning, this isn't a knife that, based on my preferences and what I like in a folding pocket knife, is something that I'll keep in my own collection. It just doesn't check the boxes that I like to have checked to keep something around. It doesn't excite me, and knives have to excite me at this point because I've got a ton of them and I'm constantly going through new ones. So it won't be that for me. But I'm really glad that I checked it out. I'm glad that I saw for myself what their build quality is like on a finished product and got to handle it and carry it and use it. And so with all that said, it's been a good experience trying it out, but just not going to be a long-term keeper for me. So I guess that'll be it. I think that's a pretty good way to end this. I'm sure there's a lot more I could have said, but we're already close to 20 minutes here. So let's call that good. And yeah, again, I will link to River's Edge Cutlery down below. I appreciate those guys as always. They're super fast and really great customer service, and they're nice to me, and I just like them. They're cool people over there. So their links will all be listed down below. And until next time, this has been the Tor Knives Merchant. And yeah, interesting knife. So we'll see you guys on the next one.